No is a complete sentence. Most of us know that, at least in theory. In real life, not so much. Someone asks for a favor, you already have too much on your plate. You still hear yourself say, sure. Not because you wanted to, because saying no somehow feels heavier. Heavier than giving up another evening. Heavier than rearranging your weekend. Heavier than carrying one more responsibility you never asked for. That's strange when you think about it, because yes usually costs something. No is free, and yet no is the one that feels expensive. Maybe because most of us learn that saying no means disappointing people, being difficult, being selfish, being cold. So instead, we become available constantly, not because we have endless energy, because we think availability is kindness. But those aren't always the same thing. Sometimes what looks generous is actually fear. Fear that people won't like us. Fear they'll think we've changed. Fear they'll stop asking altogether. The funny thing is, most people never notice the dozens of times you said yes. They notice the one time you finally said no. And suddenly it feels like you've done something wrong. Actress Julia Louis-Dreyfus once said she loves the phrase, no is a complete sentence. Simple. Almost too simple. She talked about how much freedom that idea gave her. Not because she wanted to reject people, because she realized she didn't owe everyone an explanation for protecting her own time and energy. Eventually, life gives you more requests than hours, and then the math stops working. We usually think the hardest part of saying no is saying the word. It isn't. The hardest part is surviving the silence afterwards, that little pause, the one where you're waiting for disappointment or judgment or an argument, which is why so many people rush to fill the silence. I wish I could. I'm so sorry. Maybe another time. I've just been really busy lately. Notice what happens. The no lasts 1 second. The explanation lasts 2 minutes, sometimes 10. It's almost like we're trying to make up for disappointing them. It can have an unintended effect. The longer the explanation is, the more negotiable the decision starts to sound. If your reason is that you're busy, maybe next Friday afternoon works. If your reason is you're tired, maybe it'll only take an hour. If your reason is your schedule, maybe they'll help rearrange it. The explanation becomes the conversation, not the answer. That's why no is a complete sentence lands differently. Not because explanations are bad. Sometimes they're thoughtful. Sometimes they're appropriate. The explanation doesn't create the boundary. It only explains it. We already know availability isn't the same as kindness. It's just easy to forget once it's a person doing the boundary setting instead of a business. A doctor who isn't taking appointments isn't being rude. A restaurant that's closed isn't insulting hungry people. A library doesn't apologize for locking its doors at night. Those limits aren't personal. They're what allowed the place to keep existing. People understand that when it's a business. The second a person does the same thing, it suddenly feels offensive. Then suddenly boundaries feel offensive. The people who are hardest to say no to usually aren't strangers. Many people don't struggle with saying no to strangers. They struggle with saying no to the people they love. Family, friends, coworkers, neighbors. The people whose opinions matter, which makes sense. Relationships involve compromise, but compromise isn't the same as permanent availability. Imagine someone who never misses a phone call, answers every message immediately, accepts every invitation, volunteers every time. At first, that sounds admirable. Then something strange starts happening. Nobody asks whether they're free anymore. They just assume they are. Reliability slowly turns into expectation. Expectation quietly turns into obligation. And obligation has a way of making generosity disappear. Because generosity only exists when there's a choice. Without choice, it's just compliance, which is the real cost of never saying no. The choice disappears. One of the biggest myths about boundaries is that they're walls. They're usually doors. Doors open, doors close. The important part isn't that they stay shut forever. The important part is that someone gets to decide when they open. Think about your own home. You probably lock the door at night. No one interprets that as hostility. They interpret it as normal. Privacy isn't rejection. It's maintenance. The same thing happens with time or attention or emotional energy. Those things need maintenance too. Sometimes saying yes isn't about helping someone else. It's about protecting an image of ourselves. The dependable one, the generous one, the easygoing one, the person who never lets anybody down. That's a nice identity until you become trapped inside it, because now every no feels like you're betraying your own character. Maybe that's why some people burn out, while everyone around them thinks they're doing great. From the outside, they're incredibly capable. Inside, they're quietly disappearing. Not because they were asked too much, because they stopped checking whether they wanted to say yes in the first place. People often worry that boundaries create distance. Sometimes they create honesty. Think about the friendships where both people feel free to decline an invitation. Those relationships usually last because nobody is pretending. Nobody is keeping score. Nobody secretly resents showing up. The yes actually means yes. That's valuable. A forced yes has a cost. It often comes with exhaustion, impatience, regret, sometimes even anger. The person receiving it never asked for those things. They just wanted your time. Instead, they unknowingly inherited your resentment, which means the no you avoided didn't disappear. It changed shape. It showed up later in your mood, in your energy, in the way you answered the phone the next time. That's what makes the idea different. Not because it encourages people to refuse everything, because it reminds us that every yes deserves to be chosen, not defaulted. The goal isn't fewer commitments, it's more honest ones. Ironically, people often become more generous after they start protecting their limits, because now the help they're offering is real. not borrowed from tomorrow's energy, not stolen from their own peace, actually given. And that's different. The smallest sentences sometimes carry the biggest shifts. No. Just 2 letters. Not a speech, not a defense, not a courtroom argument, just clarity. And clarity has a quiet way of making everything else simpler. If you'd like to keep exploring conversations like these, every week inside my school community, we take one personal development idea and actually live with it for a week. We compare notes, discover what worked, what surprised us, and what none of us would have seen on our own. You'll find the link to join us in the video description. And before you go, please share this video with someone who's been having the same conversation with themselves. I'll see you in the next one.